I'd like to welcome Bob Sandford for our discussion today. I understand that you've lived in Jasper before, and because of your career and your presence in the Bow Valley, you've got deep personal ties to the community there. Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about your history with Jasper and its people?
Well, I can maintain that my career in national parks began there. I could also forthrightly say that my adult life also began in Jasper. The time I spent living there was not just formative, but transformational. And I've known or worked in some way with every park superintendent since 1973, including the current one, Alan Fair. I also knew an entire generation of park wardens and park naturalists, and my interest in politics began there when, at the age of 23, I was elected to Jasper's first Municipal Citizen Advisory Committee. And I've known Dick Ireland, the current mayor, for 30 years, and I know many people who lost their homes, and it's for them that I bear witness. I will bear witness on behalf of them. So I want what has happened there to have meaning and value beyond the horror that we've just witnessed.
Thank you for that. What do we know about the people that have lived through this directly?
There are heartbreaking realities associated with large-scale disasters, and one of them is the moment you lose your house in a wildfire. It's the moment you start on a long journey toward putting your life back together again. And the stories of grief and loss are just coming now. And we see how many people have lost so much, not just their homes, but their businesses. And many, many stories like that, unfortunately, remain to be told.
Bob, as a water management professional and as someone deeply familiar with climate change, what do you think are the lessons available to us?
As Jean Vallant pointed out in Fire Weather, The Making of a Beast, we have known in general terms for some time what climate heating would bring in its wake, but we knew we were just guessing and there would be surprises. And the otherworldly power and voracious fuel-hungry intentionality of bigger, hotter, and faster wildfire is one of those surprises. How many more Slave Lakes, Fort McMurray's, Lytton's, and Jasper's have to be incinerated before we get the point? Climate breakdown is real, and if we don't catch up with it and get ahead of it, the environmental, social, economic, and political consequences of failing to address this existential threat will diminish the lives of every Canadian. And what I'm asking, and what we'll be asking here, is can't the Jasper fires be the tipping point at which Canadian consciousness toward climate change finally results in change and action? What more do politicians and business leaders need to know and see before they act in a meaningful way? And what they need to know is this: wildfire is now fueling a new understanding of just how destructive climate breakdown will be. We now face a future none of us wanted to see. We have changed fire as we know it, and now fire will change us.
To what extent do you think that these governments are aware of how to manage the situation moving forward?
Well, this has been a long-term dialogue over many years, and I think more communities are seeing just how important it is that they respond to this threat. I watched the virtual forum on August 16th at which the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction offered their initial findings on the effectiveness of fire smarting and fire adaptation leading up to and during the time the Jasper Complex fire entered the town. And their initial assessment after visiting the town was that fire smarting, where it was applied, worked, especially where fire breaks were considered and created as part of fire smarting. And in that regard, at the community level, Jasper is both an example and a lesson. And the larger lesson remains, however, we got to get to the root of the growing fire problem. And it's time, I think, for the social license granted to fossil fuel producers to be revoked. Now, in more direct answer to your question, Scott, I think it's really important for all levels of government to listen to people with experience. And last night I had dinner with a helicopter pilot who has 2,000 hours of firefighting experience in bigger, hotter, faster fires because we continue to fail to attack them when there are less than 1 hectare are occurring more frequently. And as he pointed out, cost cutting costs us dearly. And again, he pointed out that half measures don't work. You need to have helicopters and attack crews in place before fires get out of control. And I know that's expensive, but it's more expensive if you lose your town. But with cutbacks, these reserve crews are too small and too dispersed to mobilize immediately. Jasper had 2 initial attack crews rather than the 8 that they had previously. Banff has 3 initial attack crews rather than the 12 they had previously. Now, in the meantime, we need to be reminded that the global climate solidarity cavalry is not coming to save us, nor can we necessarily say that big government will do the same. We're rather on our own. So we have to pay attention and save ourselves. We have to protect ourselves and those we love and care about first, and then we have to protect the communities in which we live. But on the other hand, I've been saying this for years, we don't necessarily have to despair about this. We should, in fact, see this as an exciting time. We know what we have to do. We know what Indigenous people have known for thousands of years. We can reduce and moderate the threat of climate disruption by protecting, restoring, and constantly rehabilitating natural system function. And from this, we see it's not the end of the world. It's just the beginning of another. So this is an opportunity for us to build community, but we need to hurry.
I understand in your role with the UN that you've been asked to write a report about the Jasper fires that offers some perspective and some lessons. Can you tell us what the main findings of that report are?
I'm still in the midst of writing that report, and this situation is not over yet. But let me say that on August 28th, 2024, this year, the New York Times reported that according to a paper published in Nature, because of the extent of the wildfires in 2023, Canada became the 4th largest emitter of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in the world, behind only the United States, China, and India. The wildfires in 2023, scientists reported, called into question how much the carbon the forests of the world will absorb in the future, or absorb in the future. That in turn may make it necessary to reconsider calculations of how much more greenhouse gases humans can add to the atmosphere without pushing the temperature beyond current global targets. And the most ambitious limit set in the Paris 2015 agreement was 1.5 degrees Celsius, or 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial times. I don't think that's possible anymore. And beyond that threshold, and I think Canada is going to warm at least to 3 degrees, scientists are of the view it's going to be increasingly difficult for humans to adapt to a hotter climate. One indelible learning from the burning in my mind already is that one that strikes me more and more deeply with each passing day. In the end, all we have is one another. We are all in this together.
Thanks, Bob. So as you and I've talked about in the past, Digital Hobo is releasing an album in 2025 called Climate Stories. And it's a collection of songs that reflect the lived experience of people that have been affected by climate change and will continue to be in the future. I'd like you to, if you would, give us a few thoughts on the role of art in the climate debate and in climate advocacy in general.
Well, I can certainly make a few observations on the importance of art, in particular your work in this time of climate emergency. But I think you are much better able to answer that question